this constant concept, the genesis of this whole idea was resilience, to overcome. And I hope that there was newfound strength. I couldn't have ever anticipated what happened. And then you invited me to be in the Global Crisis exhibit. And I love doing that. That was the climate crisis. Okay, so I did a lot of research because of that. And even just updated that 3 million species were lost during that fire. And so the cockatiel is actually indigenous to Australia. So as part of that response to that, I have a company that's down in Midveld where I get my butterflies. I love going in there. They have all kinds of butterflies and skeletons and everything. So I get actual models to work from, if you will. When that fire happened, I asked him if he had a cockatiel. And he said that he actually had one. And he said, I put it away and I didn't realize I had it. I'd forgotten all about it. And he said, I think it's meant to be yours. And I just loved painting that. That was so much fun. But the first one, Amber, that I did was of the butterfly in the map of Australia. And this was, I thought, well, what would it be like if there was a little greenery in his beak? And it suggested hope. So most of what I've done is about being resilient. This whole show for me was during a time that we all faced tremendous adversity, not only COVID, but all the challenges that arose from that. And so for me, that was, the emptiness. Is it really empty or is it hopeful? And to me, that's what I saw was hope. On these butterflies, I know Adrienne, she said to me, Sandy, you must really love butterflies. And I thought, you know what I really love about butterflies is the symbolism of the butterfly. They represent hope to me, about rising above. And so here's another quote by Maya, is Still I Rise. And it has a poem that's associated with it. But I love that, the idea that we can overcome. The simplicity of a butterfly to me is also that when it goes into the chrysalis to become the butterfly, that during that time there's a period of isolation before it becomes its most beautiful. That to me, that energy that combines with this restorative process of change and growth. So this painting of Beauty from Ashes, that's what I wanted to convey, is that energy that comes as we are almost in isolation, and we have to dig deep into inner strengths that we have gotten in this lifetime. We can't just rely on outer influences. So the genesis of this whole idea was to show the beauty that can come in those periods of stillness, and how rather than just focusing on outside stimulus, that we can really find that strength as we draw from that quiet inner reflection. And so those were symbols of that I thought about as we experienced COVID. This is Keep On Swimming. It was my jump off the diving board and have a little courage, because it's something that my mom tells me all the time, keep on swimming. It comes from Finding Nemo. I know that's deep philosophy there, but isn't it? Yeah. But it's something I think that we had to face this year. And I put the water level very intentionally. I remember a classical movie called The Great Race, and they were on an iceberg, and the water level was rising, and one of the other actors said, well, let's be positive, right? And he said, well, I'm going to be positive until the water gets up to here, and then I'm going to mention it to somebody. And for me, that was, again, a reaction to all of us being in isolation. But a lot of my suppliers, a lot of businesses come out of outside of Utah. The canvas I use, the paints that I use, the varnish that I use are all in other parts of the world. And all of a sudden they weren't available. And that was startling to me. You had to reflect on, what if I couldn't get canvas? But this one, I just feel like, of all the paintings, this is one that I'm very passionate about. The strength of this figure, as she rises above the storms of her life. The bottom of her skirt is an intentional decision. And the reason for that being unfinished is, here she's in the midst of this storm, and I wanted to convey that it's an unfinished story. It hasn't been written yet. She has the strength within her to rise above her challenges, and the storm is hitting, but it's not, it's surrounding her, but she's serene and calm and has that inner strength. I got such great joy from painting this painting, and in a way, it was cathartic to me. Because in painting that, there were days that I just thought, wow, I am that painting. And so to have something that I thought was really horrific, like I researched a lot of storms and I got reference for storms. And so I wanted to show what I thought was one of the strongest forces in nature, and that would have been a tornado. And I haven't personally been downtown when the tornado came through, but I remember that really well. And I remember laughing at him going, we don't get tornadoes in Utah. And so it was kind of also, we don't have COVID in Utah. That stays in China.
Hurricane winds.
Right. And my model yesterday, he said, do you know what day it is? What happened a year ago? And I said, well, I'm not sure. And he said, well, we had the earthquake. But it was an interesting thing. So all of this kind of coalesces into the story I wanted to tell. And people say to you, what's your favorite painting? And I like to draw on the analogy of what Steve said. It's all one painting.
Yeah.
And to me, it is all one painting. But this constant concept, the genesis of this whole idea was resilience, to overcome. I'm not one that I like to really talk about that part of it, but I felt a strength come to me because of the isolation that I hadn't felt before. And that was very startling to me. So here's this reaction, and I thought it would make me paralyzed by the whole events of what was happening. And instead, I found great strength in overcoming. And we didn't have to be somewhere, be doing something else. We could just really focus, and that was just such a great blessing that came out of a very chaotic time.
Yeah.
And there was almost, again, that stillness.
Yeah.
I met an artist by the name of Shannon, and she taught a workshop on hands. Because of COVID, I got lots of extra study time, so she helped this idea to generate. Really the focus, I love Para jewelry, and it's a jewelry that comes out of Canada, and I've got several pieces, my rings are that, and some of my necklaces are Para. They were a box of stamps that this husband and wife found, and then they started making jewelry out of it. So the story is just like that. I love that you could tell a story with hands, and with a gesture there. And then the resilient, the lettering was very intentional, and the block, I actually bought children's blocks. This B represents symbolically the energy and strength, It's one of the symbols of Utah. But the letter 8 means restorative, regenerative, and that it is a number that's recognized throughout the history of the world as a number like the butterfly that talks about restoration and overcoming. So, and I actually looked that up. I have several books on symbolism. That is something in my own reading. I love knowing about symbolism, and so I put it in my paintings. But that was the reason, is that my mom had read a book, and I'm not going to say it correctly. It's called Ikigai, and it's a philosophy of how her age to age and to continue to live and have that zest and passion. And there's a saying associated with this book. It's called fall down 7 times and stand up 8. And I love that. So that's the title of this painting, is fall down 7 times, rise 8. So I love that philosophy, and when she told me that, this whole year I had in my studio that statement, fall down 7, rise 8. I like it. So the strength of rising above. This is Hammershow, and he was a Danish artist that I put as a postcard. And again, the whole concept is the harmony amidst the grays and the shells, and again, the symbolism that I love so much. So this is called Illuminate Luz. It means shine in the light. And I've got a ring of that. And again, it's Pura, and it means, I'm mentioning my mom a couple of times, but when I was little, there was a wooden spoon that my grandmother had, and my mom just gave it to Dave and I. And on that spoon it has carved, and it's German, so I don't even begin to know how to pronounce it. But it says, if you want sunshine in your life, you've got to be the sun yourself.
No.
That's my little granddaughter, my precious Lizzie. So I love this. Again, looking for the light.
Right.
And in the midst of adversity and challenges, we look for the light.